Chapter 4. Meeting the Smokey Chainsmoker. The morning came and everyone went back to the common room. Harry and Hermione put on their respirators and said goodbye to Ron and Ginny. "Harry and Mud, bonding time!" Harry exclaimed. "You look funny." "So do you," Hermione replied, her voice distorted from the insect-like mask. Bug Mud," Harry chanted as they walked. Hermione stopped walking. "Hagrid didn't tell us where Tom Riddle is." "Well, it wouldn't have been much of a search if he did." Hermione took the respirator off and started running down the hallway. Harry followed her to Hagrid's cabin and they found him outside with Fang. "Hagrid, you didn't tell us where Tom Riddle is," she growled. Details. You said I couldn't stop him from finding Riddle. I assumed you wouldn't need a location." Hermione glared at him and then started running towards him. Harry pulled her back, but Hermione tried to break free and get to Hagrid. "Let me at him! This is what I've trained for!" Harry exclaimed, still restraining Hermione. "Besides, I don't have a tracker on each student," Hagrid said. Harry looked at Hagrid suspiciously. "Or do you? Bum, bum, bum!" Hagrid looked at Hermione. "Really? All this for me not giving you a location to a problem student?" "It's not just that, Hagrid. I bet you spend all summer telling kids that they're wizards." "I do, it's part of me job." Hermione tried harder to get to Hagrid. "Grr!" Hagrid sighed. "He's usually in the forest. Be careful." He and Fang went into the cabin and shut the door. Hermione calmed down a little and they walked to the forest. They started stepping on leaves as they got closer to the trees. They were about to enter the forest when Dobby started running towards them. "Harry Potter! Dobby wants to apologize for beating you with a broom!" Harry looked down at Dobby. Don't worry about it. A good superhero never holds grudges." "Don't most superheroes try to get revenge on villains who have killed their loved ones?" Hermione asked. "Not this one," Harry said with a big grin. "What about the time you tried to kill someone for taking your pet rock?" Hermione reminded. "Shut up," Harry said after losing his smile. "What about the time you robbed the candy car?" Harry and Hermione glared at each other for a while, and Dobby broke the silence. "Are you going on a nature walk in the forest?" Dobby asked. "We are going to see a heavy smoker who wrote a brilliant book," Harry answered. Dobby looked concerned. "A heavy smoker? Don't you know about secondhand smoke? Dobby should have beaten you with a shovel." "That's why we have these," Hermione answered, putting her respirator on. Harry did the same and waved to Dobby, showing that they're going to be fine. "Go on now, Dobby, before we make you spend more time helping with Adam and Kevin's movie." Dobby reluctantly ran away and Harry and Hermione entered the forest. They walked through the forest for a while. The leaves crunched beneath them, making it hard to listen for anyone else in the forest. They walked for a long time. The trees sometimes looked so similar they thought they were going in circles. Eventually, they found a small clearing of land and saw someone sitting on a stump, writing in a diary. His head was down and the hood of his cloak was up. He didn't wear a scarf or a heavier jacket than the cloak. He had a cigarette in his mouth and smoke was rising from it. "He must be working on his next book," Harry whispered as they peered at the person from behind a tree. "We don't know if this is Tom Riddle," Hermione whispered back. "Who else would be sitting in a forest?" "Smoking," Harry asked, still whispering. They walked towards the person. He slightly looked up and they saw his dead eyes staring at him. Are you Tom Riddle?" Hermione asked. He stared at them for so long they thought he might not have heard them. "I have many names." His cigarette bounced up and down as he talked in a raspy voice. "You wrote that book that was placed in the Gryffindor common room," Harry said, not sounding as brave as usual. "You could say that." He didn't glance away as he spoke, not for a second. He didn't move his head, and his face barely noticed his mouth moving. He wasn't blinking either. His cold eyes relentlessly stared at them. Hermione and Harry stood speechless. They didn't know what to say next. He didn't exactly give them an answer. He closed his book and put it on the ground next to his tree stump. He then took the cigarette out of his mouth and dropped it on the ground with dozens of others. While mashing the cigarette into the ground with a single step, he reached into his pocket and took out a lighter and a package of cigarettes. After removing 2 from the package, he put them in his mouth. He lit both, and more smoke escaped from his mouth as he exhaled. "Is Tom Riddle your pen name or your real name?" Harry asked. Tom Riddle stood up and walked towards them. "You want to know my real name?" Harry stepped back. Yes? "I have no real name. However, a name I once used quite frequently was Tom Lucitor." Tom Riddle came even closer. "Now leave before I end you." After seeing the anger in his eyes, they quickly left the forest and ran back to the common room as fast as they could. They took their masks off when they got out of the forest. They got to the common room and closed the door behind them. They caught their breath while Ginny and Ron rushed over to them. "How'd it go?" Ginny asked. "Tom Riddle's really creepy," Hermione huffed. "And scary," Harry added. "I keep hearing about thefts around the castle. I bet he is responsible for them." Hermione's unconvinced stare didn't seem to agree with Harry's suspicion. "Was it everything you hoped it would be?" "No," Hermione said bluntly. Ginny crinkled her nose. "Your clothes smell like cigarettes." We'd better clean them, Hermione said as she looked down at her clothes. Ron laughed. That's not gonna get the smell out. You're gonna have to burn them. That's why I don't smoke drugs. Amateurs. They got cleaned up and then burned their clothes in the common room's fireplace. As the months passed, they tried to forget about Tom Riddle. Harry, Hermione, and Ron sat in the common room working on some homework. It was the last homework assignment before Christmas break. Ron was having trouble with his work. He kept erasing his writing and eventually put his pencil down. That's enough of that! He threw the paper into the fireplace. It turned black as the fire consumed it and quickly turned to ash. "I've finished!" Harry exclaimed. "I named 27 ways to make wands safer!" Hermione crumpled her paper and tossed it into the fire. "They don't grade us, remember?" "I still want to learn," Harry said, posing as a superhero. "Why bother?" Ron asked. "I don't think Lockhart knows any ways to make wands safer. You've seen him, can't come to class without a black eye." "Poor teaching citizen," Harry sighed. "I must do something. It is my duty to protect the people of Hogwarts." Hermione looked at him sideways. "But Lockhart's, like, the worst. The literal worst." "He makes Squirrel look like a good teacher," Ron added. Hedwig flew in and brought a letter to Harry. He opened it and read it aloud. "Dear Harry, we are deeply sorry, but Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon are still after us. We have escaped to Australia and cannot take care of you this Christmas. Please understand, love, Mum and Dad." Not surprisingly, Harry became sad. Hermione took the letter and put it on a table. "Cheer up, Harry. At least they're safe." Ron joined in. "Yeah, Australia's cool. They have kangaroos there." "I wish my parents would go to Australia," Hermione sighed. "Maybe you can learn a spell that changes their memories and makes them move to Australia and live under different names," Ron suggested. A dreamy, almost sinister smile grew on Hermione's face as she considered the proposition. Then it faded away. Oh well. Another unfamiliar owl came in and gave a letter to Ron. He took the paper and unfolded it. He stared at the words until Hermione lost her patience and took the letter to read it for him. "Dear Ron, I'm inviting you and your friends home this Christmas if they plan on staying at Hogwarts. I hope to see you soon, Ron. With love, Mum." "Oh, cool!" Hermione exclaimed. "Harry, you're going to love Ron's family." Ron groaned. "But I don't want to go home. They're always stealing my drugs. It's almost impossible to create a good stash." Hermione gave him the letter. "Come on, Ron. Your family is super nice." "Why can't they go see my brother Charlie? He works at a Romanian zoo and they love zoos. When I was little, they sang this mental nursery rhyme." He began to recite the song. "I love the zoo, I love the zoo, Z-O-O, Z-O-O. Rubbish, all 50 verses. Then it gets inside your head and won't leave." Hermione laughed and then left to go tell Ginny that they'd be joining the Weasleys for Christmas. Ron shook the song out of his head and changed the subject. "Are we still trying to find Dudley's killer?" "Oh yeah," Harry exclaimed. "We need to get those points for Gryffindor." "I wonder who would know anything about a murder in the forest." "Someone who spends a lot of time in the forest," Ron suggested. "Someone like Tom Riddle." "You're right! He would definitely know something about it. But Mud would never let us go back there." "Don't worry about her. I have a plan. Go get the 2 respirators. Meet me at the forest." Harry left to get the masks, and Ron waited for Hermione. Ginny and Hermione came down the stairs. Ginny began to browse through the many shelves of books, while Ron stood up and made his way across the room. "Hermione, this book smells like bubblegum!" "What?" She wasn't given a reply, as not a second later, Ron shoved the book in her face. Almost instantly, she collapsed on the ground. Ginny spun around and located the source of the thud she had heard. "Hermione!" "Oh no!" Hermione collapsed for a reason completely unrelated to this book. "What did you do?" Ginny asked accusingly. Without an answer, she looked back to the heap on the floor. "Should we take her to Madame Pomfrey?" "Nah, she'll be fine. All the schoolwork she does put her right out. You stay here, I've gotta go." Ron ran outside and met up with Harry. They put the masks on and searched for Tom Riddle. They looked around for a long time and finally found the spot they were in before. This time there was snow on the ground, and most trees had no leaves. Tom Riddle sat on the stump with 3 cigarettes in his mouth. Dozens of cigarettes were on the ground around the stump. "Hello, Mr. Riddle, citizen!" Tom Riddle looked up at them with hate. "Do you know anything about a murder in this forest?" Ron asked. "Many murders occur in forests. For example, no one is here in this forest except us. If I were to kill you, your screams wouldn't be heard." Harry and Ron stood terrified of Tom Riddle. Harry told himself he must be brave. "I demand you give us clear answers, citizen." He looked at Harry, and the corners of his mouth turned up into a smirk. "I was told long ago to never give straight answers, and if I am questioned, I have been asked to take care of those curious. I have never hesitated to do so. I believe the last time we met, I told you to leave before I ended you and your friend. This time, Potter, I'll ask you and your other friend to leave before this forest is tainted with more death." Harry stood tall. "You don't scare me." Ron was inspired by Harry and joined in. "Me either. My drug skills are way better than your smoking skills." Tom Riddle picked up a wooden knife and rushed towards them. Harry's heart skipped a beat and Ron jumped forward. "Ron!" Harry shouted. He closed his eyes, not wanting to see what was happening. When he opened them again, he saw Tom Riddle on the ground and Ron standing above him, holding a wooden knife in one hand and an empty bag in the other. "Ha ha," Ron said, looking at Tom Riddle. "I told you my drug skills are better than your smoking skills. And your knife-fighting skills." Ron dropped the wooden knife on the ground. "Now what? Is he dead?" "Of course not. I'm a drug enthusiast, not a killer," Ron answered as he picked up a small tree branch. "Look, I found a wand." "Wow, now we both have wands, except that mine's at my house. I couldn't grab anything while Uncle Vernon kidnapped me." Harry looked at Tom Riddle. "We should probably leave. He'll be really mad when he wakes up." Harry watched as the flames of the cigarettes were extinguished in the snow. They started walking back to the castle. "How do you get Mud to let us come here?" "Oh, I drugged her." "What? Wait, so she'll be high?" Harry asked. "Yep. We'd better hurry to see what she'll be like. I bet she'll be hilarious." They rushed back to the common room. Hermione was awake and very angry. "Ron!" "Uh-oh," Ron said as he watched Hermione unsteadily walk towards him. "Isn't she supposed to be happy?" Harry asked. "This was a bad decision. Very bad. Drugs affect people differently sometimes. Remember Squirrel?" Ron turned around and opened the door. "I'll be hiding with the Gingers in Ireland if you need me." He left the common room and sprinted down the stairs. Harry noticed Ginny crouching behind an overturned table. He couldn't read her mind, but he could tell she was planning something. Just in case her plot involved wrestling snakes, Harry decided to step in. "Mud, why don't you go upstairs and sleep for a while?" "Not until I find Ron," Hermione yelled, her words slurred. Ginny stood up and walked towards her. "Yeah, that's a good idea. Come on, let's go get some sleep." Ginny guided her up the stairs as Hermione insulted Ron. Soon, Ginny came back downstairs. "She's asleep." Ginny sat down on a couch and noticed Harry's owl. "Oh, hi, Hedwig! Who's a pretty boy?" She pet his soft feathers. "In the book series I'm reading, the main character has a pet owl, though the owl is a girl." Hedwig stayed for a minute, enjoying the attention. Then he flew up the staircase to the boys' dormitories. "How far are you in the series?" Harry asked, making conversation. "I'm reading the second book. They just found some writing on a wall." "That reminds me of the writing we found on Halloween night. I wonder who wrote it. It seems to have blown over." Ginny's eyes widened. What if the person who wrote the message doesn't remember writing it? What if they were possessed or something? Harry thought about her idea. "In that case, it could have been any of us." Ginny gasped. "What if it was me?" For a moment, Harry's eyes were as wide as hers, but then he relaxed them. Probably not." Ginny calmed down. "Yeah, you're right. That would be a pretty stupid idea." They sat quietly for a moment. "Did you hear someone moan?" "You most likely heard Moaning Joanne." Harry walked to the window and opened it. "Shut up, Moaning Joanne. We know you're upset. Be quiet." Harry went back to his seat. Hedwig came back with a sock in his mouth. Ginny looked confused by this behavior. Harry noticed and explained. "Hedwig really likes socks. He just finds them, then he drops them in random places. It's probably because he likes delivering letters so much." The doors of the common room opened and Dobby came in. "Harry Potter! You've got to get out of here! You're in danger!" "Not this again! Hagrid said he was taking care of things, elf citizen," Harry reminded. "But now you're in a lot of danger! You've poked the bear!" "I haven't poked any bears since last year's tennis incident." "It's a figure of speech." "What's going on?" Ginny asked. "Harry Potter is in grave danger. Dobby heard Hagrid and the other one talking." "I'll be fine as long as you don't hit me with another broom," Harry said before throwing the sock at Dobby. Dobby picked up the sock. "Dobby is free! Thank you, Harry Potter! Dobby will make sure to keep you extra safe now, even if that means beating you with a shovel." Harry groaned. "Dobby's going to get you a train ticket back home and a bodyguard, and Dobby is going to go to the orange store and buy a sledgehammer." Dobby hurried out of the room. Ron didn't come back until late in the night. He snuck in the dormitory and got changed, waking Harry. "So you didn't go to Ireland?" he whispered. "Hagrid stopped me before I could cross the moat. So I just chilled at his house for a while. He has a lot of pets." "You can't hide from Mud forever." "I know, I just need to hide long enough for her to stop being mad at me." "I don't think time will stop her from being mad." According to Moaning Joanne, her senpai, under the influence of an anger locket, once left their tent house. Apparently, she was really sad the whole time, but when he came back, she started attacking him, even after he explained that he wanted to return the moment he left, but couldn't because of the magic. I understand being mad in the moment and needing to cool off, but she was angry for a super long time. It's just unnatural to be angry for weeks. Reminds me of lazy writing. Conveniently getting rid of a character for a few months, and then not understanding being mad for weeks or months is crazy and impossible. There's a certain amount of friendship that builds up, and a fight made of unjustified anger won't tear that down. "Huh," Ron replied. He looked out the dark window for a moment. Maybe I should immigrate to Ireland. Stay there permanently, you know? You'd fit right in. They probably won't accept my drug usage. Just switch to alcohol. But I like my liver. Well, you'd better figure out a plan, because Christmas break starts in a couple days, and it'll be hard to avoid mud on a train.